Imagine a country sitting on an ocean of oil beneath its land. So much oil that it holds more proven reserves than any other nation on Earth. That country is Venezuela. Despite years of political and economic instability, Venezuela remains one of the most strategically important countries in the global energy system. The reason is simple: oil. Venezuela holds around 300 billion barrels of proven crude oil reserves, the largest in the world, representing roughly 17% of global oil reserves. To understand why Venezuela matters so much in global energy, we need to look beyond headlines and focus on the bigger picture. Energy is the bloodline of the modern economy. Oil powers transportation, manufacturing, shipping, and countless industries. Countries that control large energy resources often hold enormous geopolitical influence because they can affect global supply and prices. Venezuela's massive oil reserves place it in this powerful position, even if its current production is far lower than its potential. The story of Venezuela's oil industry begins nearly a century ago. In the early 20th century, large oil deposits were discovered beneath Venezuelan soil. International companies rushed to invest, drilling wells and building infrastructure to extract the valuable resource. By the mid-1900s, Venezuela had become one of the world's leading oil exporters and one of the wealthiest countries in Latin America. Oil money funded highways, cities, public services, and economic growth. But the real scale of Venezuela's energy power became clear when scientists discovered the enormous deposits in the Orinoco Oil Belt. This region contains one of the largest accumulations of crude oil on the planet. Over time, new technology and rising oil prices allowed these heavy oil reserves to be classified as proven, dramatically increasing Venezuela's estimated oil wealth. This is how Venezuela eventually surpassed countries like Saudi Arabia in total reserves. When a country controls such vast amounts of oil, it becomes important not only economically but strategically. Global oil markets operate on supply and demand. If a country with huge reserves increases production, global supply rises and prices may fall. If that country reduces exports or experiences disruptions, global supply tightens and prices can rise. Because Venezuela holds such a large share of the world's reserves, changes in its production can influence energy markets far beyond its borders. Another reason Venezuela matters in global energy is the type of oil it produces. Much of Venezuela's crude is known as heavy crude oil. This oil is thicker and denser than lighter crude produced in places like the United States. While heavy crude requires more complex refining, many refineries around the world are specifically designed to process it. Countries such as the United States and India have refineries that can handle heavy crude efficiently, making Venezuelan oil valuable to certain parts of the global refining industry. For decades, Venezuela exported millions of barrels of oil per day to international markets. These exports helped supply refineries across North America, Europe, and Asia. Oil revenues became the backbone of Venezuela's economy, funding government budgets and social programs. In fact, for many years, the country depended heavily on oil income for economic stability. However, the story of Venezuela's oil wealth is also a story of challenges. Over the past 2 decades, political decisions, economic mismanagement, and international sanctions have severely reduced oil production. At its peak in the late 20th century, Venezuela produced more than 3 million barrels of oil per day. In recent years, production has fallen dramatically, dropping to around 1 million barrels per day or less in some periods. This decline has created a strange paradox. Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world, yet it produces only a small fraction of global oil supply. Aging infrastructure, lack of investment, and technical challenges have slowed the industry. Many oil fields require significant maintenance, advanced technology, and large financial investments to operate efficiently. Despite these problems, Venezuela remains extremely important in global energy discussions. Energy analysts often describe Venezuela as a sleeping giant of the oil world. The resources are there underground, enormous quantities of crude oil waiting to be extracted. If the country's oil industry was rebuilt and modernized, production could increase dramatically. That potential alone makes Venezuela strategically important to global energy markets. Another factor that adds to Venezuela's importance is geopolitics. Oil is not just an economic commodity, it is also a political tool. Countries that produce large amounts of oil can influence international relationships and alliances. Venezuela is a member of OPEC, the organization of major oil exporting countries that works to manage global oil supply and stabilize prices. Decisions made within OPEC can influence global energy markets, and Venezuela's large reserves give it a voice within that group. Global energy security is another reason why Venezuela matters. The world consumes enormous amounts of oil every day. As populations grow and economies expand, energy demand continues to rise. Having large reserves available in different parts of the world helps balance supply. Venezuela's reserves represent a massive potential for future oil supply if global demand continues to increase. The location of Venezuela also adds to its importance. Situated in northern South America with access to the Caribbean Sea, the country lies close to major shipping routes connecting the Americas, Europe, and global energy markets. This geographic position makes it easier to transport oil to refineries in the United States and other regions. Even today, when Venezuela's production levels are far below their historical peak, the country's reserves continue to influence global energy discussions. Investors, governments, and energy companies all pay close attention to developments in Venezuela because changes in its oil industry could reshape global supply in the future. For example, if political conditions improved and international investment returned, oil companies could begin rebuilding Venezuela's infrastructure. New drilling technologies, upgraded refineries, and modern pipelines could significantly increase production. Such a recovery would add millions of barrels of oil to global markets over time, potentially affecting global prices and supply chains. On the other hand, continued instability in Venezuela's oil sector can also create ripple effects. If production remains low or exports are disrupted, it reduces potential supply in the global energy system. When supply becomes tighter, oil prices can rise, affecting transportation costs, manufacturing expenses, and ultimately consumer prices around the world. This is why analysts often say that Venezuela's oil industry is not just a national issue, but a global one. The country's energy resources have the potential to influence markets, shape geopolitical relationships, and impact energy security across continents. Another interesting aspect of Venezuela's oil is the long-term future of energy. As the world gradually transitions towards renewable energy sources such as solar and wind power, oil will still play a major role in the global economy for many years. Transportation, aviation, shipping, and petrochemical industries still depend heavily on petroleum products. Countries with large reserves will continue to matter in the global energy landscape during this transition period. For Venezuela, the challenge is turning its vast underground resources into sustainable economic growth. The country's history shows that having natural resources alone is not enough. Infrastructure, investment, stable governance, and modern technology are all needed to transform reserves into real economic prosperity. In the end, Venezuela's oil wealth tells a powerful story about energy and global influence. Beneath its land lies one of the largest energy resources on Earth, a resource capable of shaping markets and influencing geopolitics. Even though production has declined in recent years, the sheer scale of Venezuela's reserves ensures that it remains one of the most important countries in the global energy system. Oil has the power to transform economies, shape alliances, and influence global markets. And when a country controls one of the largest oil reserves in the world pays attention. That is why Venezuela's oil continues to make it one of the most important players in global energy today and in the future.